I am Father Eugene Pathe. I am leading you through a number of meditations to help you to begin to understand the meaning of this Lenten period. We are coming today towards the end of Lent. It's the 6th Sunday of Lent that we are preparing for. The 6th Sunday is Palm Sunday in popular language. Today, when we go to Mass, we will receive a blessed palm. And with that blessed palm, there is an invitation to become part of the great victory which Jesus wins for us. For the Scripture, Palm Sunday is the day when Jesus entered Jerusalem. Like the Roman emperors, when they returned from a great victory, they would hold a victory parade in the city, and all the citizenry would turn out and they would cheer and be happy, and they would receive bread from the emperor as a gift, the food for the day. The emperor didn't lead the procession. The procession was led by his victorious soldiers, walking very proudly in front of him. He would ride a white horse and wear a laurel crown upon his head, strangely the symbol of peace, but they were anything but peaceful. And behind him there would be the prisoners that he had captured in whatever country it was that they had gone to. They were deliberately shackled together and made to be bedraggled and dispirited and miserable, and the people jeered at them as they went by. Jesus chose a donkey for his victorious parade, because humility, not pride, was the meaning that he was trying to convey. And he wore no crown. The crown would come later, and it would be a crown of thorns. And behind him there were no slaves, there were no prisoners, there was no one who had lost their freedom. There were those whom Jesus had rescued from freedom, his disciples who were with him. Jesus was in a parade because his victory would open the fullness of life. That's what Jesus said. I have come that you may have life in its fullness. That is the wonderful climax of Lent, that Jesus gives his life as a gift. Because this week we will celebrate that gift in the life of the Eucharist. And we will recall on Holy Thursday evening in the liturgy, we will recall all that God has done for his people. How he came to his people in their misery and in their slavery, and how he brought them out of slavery with great power. How he led them with his light, and in a sense his light blinded those who were to follow him, but to follow them and attack them, and so his light not merely guided, but it also protected them. When they were hungry, he gave them food. When they needed water, he gave them wonderful pure water which came from the solid rock of the desert, and they drank in plentiful gulps. He was always with them in their journey. He was always guiding. He was always speaking to them through the mind of Moses. And ultimately, he brought them to a land of their own, gave them this land, the land flowing with milk and honey, and all that comes to us in the life that Jesus gives to us in the Eucharist. That is what we celebrate. So on the night before Jesus died, he gathered his disciples together in the room. The women who followed him in his journeys, who ministered to him constantly, they would be there too. and his mother would be present. And as the meal proceeded, and there was great solemnity to that night, and as Jesus spoke, everyone else was hushed as they listened intently to the words that he spoke. And in the course of that meal, he took bread, and he broke it as the custom was. But he said, "This is my body." And he took the cup, and he passed that around, saying, "This is my blood." And silently, a little uncertain, but with great sense of awe and reverence, each one took the bread and took the cup. And they continued to listen to all that Jesus had to say. "This is me," he was saying. "This is the whole me. I am giving myself to you totally, that you may have life in its fullness. All that I am, all that I do, is yours as a gift, and you can become one in me." And as they received the gift, there was silence. And for most of them, but not all, there was a sense of becoming one with the man that they had followed. And somehow that night his stature seemed so much greater than it had ever appeared to them before. What they didn't realize, but they would come to realize in the course of time, that in sharing himself so totally in that moment, he was also offering a pledge of what would happen the next day. To give himself to them, he was pledging that he would go through the cross, that he would die upon the cross, and it was a pledge that he would lead them to the kingdom of the Father in heaven. They would understand that later, and they would hand that on to us in the tradition of Jesus' presence in the Eucharist. That's how Lent comes to an end, with the feast of the Eucharist of Jesus, the feast of the gift of Jesus, which brings to us life in its fullness. Very tellingly, the Church asks that on the following day, Good Friday, the church is left empty. It's a good thing to move round the church when nobody else is there on Good Friday, to feel its emptiness, to feel that somehow God has abandoned you, and then to share in his return, in the victory which his resurrection means. If you have spent Lent in his presence, Easter will be a wonderful and joyful feast. I wish you all a very happy Easter.